Ψιθυριστή είπαμε, έτσι. Let's start. Good morning. I'm Eleni Riga. I work in Eleusis 2021. I'm responsible for visual arts. Here today, mostly because of that, but also through the conversation, I would like to add that I have different roles parallelly, so that helps me to understand different ways of creating an artist in residency program. I have been also working as an independent curator, and I have an art platform. It's the Kepler. So many of you, I know you through different ways, with different, with my different hats, let's say. So Eleusis 2021, as probably you know, it's a new organization, at least officially. So this year we started many programs. Most of them are pilot programs. One of the programs that Kelly Diapouli, the artistic director, asked me to design is in the big book. The big book is the final book, the one that we, it's our contract, let's say, with the European Union, the European Commission. It was called Gymnasium. This was a program, a training program, an artist in residency program. And the main point was how to integrate art in the daily life. Εντάξει, σας πείραζα στην αρχή, μην ανησυχείτε.
Επειδή ξέρω ότι με ακούνε και άλλοι κύριοι,
Ναι.
δεν είναι μόνος τρόπος για να κάνουμε διερμηνία σε τέτοιου είδους χώρα.
Μήπως
αν καθόσασταν πιο κοντά θα ήταν λίγο πιο γονικό όντως, γιατί είστε τελείως
Πρέπει να έχω αφαιρετήσει και να μιλήσω.
Για να βλέπει το στόμα μου,
Πρέπει να
κυρία.
Ναι, όχι, η κυρία να μετακινηθεί, όχι εσείς.
Η κυρία μπορεί να μετακινηθεί, δεν με ακούει, έχει ακουστικά.
Εννοώ να μην χρησιμοποιηθούν τα ακουστικά.
Δεν γίνεται να κάνετε τη καταλαβαίνετε.
Ωραία, εγώ θέλετε να μιλάω πιο δυνατά, πώς έχετε να κάνω. Ωραία.
Μας είναι απλή, δεν ανησυχείτε. Όχι, όχι, κανένα πρόβλημα μπορούμε
Δεν ξέρω πόσο πιο σιγά θα το μιλάω. Δυστυχώς αυτό είναι το δίκαιο. Αυτό δεν λειτουργεί. Αν το ανοίξετε, λειτουργεί.
Απλά η κυρία λέει ότι δεν είναι ανοιχτό, εκπέμπει και είναι και δυνατά και λέει ότι δεν σας ακούει.
Δώσω ένα άλλο. Ωραία, θέλει λίγο το
Okay, just a few minutes, some technical programs, we're a new organization, everything is pilot, you see what I mean. Αν υπάρχει κάποιος άλλος που δεν μιλάει αγγλικά, να πάρει ακουστικά από πίσω. Εγώ θα συνεχίσω, γιατί δεν μπορούμε να καθυστερήσουμε άλλο. Okay, I was saying that there's many new pilot programs, and there was this program that was called Gymnasium. And this program, the last few months, it was announced to me around, I don't know, May. And we started working this idea in July. So the program is the one that you have here. Some of you have the map, some others you don't. And it's called the Initiator. So it was an artist in residence program for 1 month. We had 5 new and emerging artists. And they have created 5 artworks that you can find all around Elewsina, mostly in the central and downtown Elewsina. So I have been working the last years in different types of residencies. I don't know, a big foundation like this foundation in Paris to a smaller organization like Συνέχτα in Athens. What was curious for me, and I found it a challenge, is that the artistic director asked me another question, which was another point of view. So it was how to integrate the artists in the local community. And for me, it was very challenging, but as well I had this other hat as a curator and working very closely with the artists, being an artist in a way, of how I do that organically without instrumentalizing the artists. Don't expect for an answer today, but it was very, very difficult for me to work for an organization having one agenda and also having to protect and defend the artists. So it was very important for us to do this experience, but also invite people to talk about this experience. So I would say, frankly, that for me there's a personal interest in this conversation that we're having today, because I'm trying to find out some good practices to integrate the arts in the local community, to show to the local community why it's necessary to have an artist in residency program, but also facilitate the life of the artist, give him the time, the guidance, the space, and good conditions. So mainly that's why I asked some people that I totally respect and have been working with them in different ways. And also I invite you, all of you, that you're the public in a way, but here I'd like to ask you to be very involved in the conversation, to share your experience with us. So I will give the floor to each one of the participants to speak about 5 minutes, 5 to 7, let's say, maximum, about their different activities, their artist in residency program. Most of them are artists as well, so you have lots to share, and I think that you can also understand my concerns. I will ask Benoit Marie Morisot, who is the mentor, one of the mentors that they invited this year for Initiator. Initiator has a triadic structure, like the Eleusis mystery. There are the initiated artists, the initiators, and the supervisors. So the artists that have been selected through an open call, the mentors, the initiators that have been selected to come and mentor the artists because they have a deep knowledge of in situ installation, which is our main medium. And also the supervisors are people that come from the local community, have been contributing a lot, and they're also caring and fostering the artists. So Benoit Marie Morisot.
Let's start. Hello. I'm sorry. I have to say I didn't prepare anything because we had the opening yesterday.
And yes, we finished at 5 in the morning, so we are very fresh, so it's us, and it was a big challenge for us to do all that in 1 month. And I hope that you discover it afterwards.
So, anyway.
Okay, let's go.
We wanted to show some pictures and movies, but it's fresh news, so I didn't have the chance to make it possible. We experienced some drone filming with artists, so it was really interesting in terms of how you can transmit the time of the residency by pictures, and how you can telling stories, and how you can record and archive it. I think it's really a big deal with the residency because a lot is not visible. At least we did this show, but I don't know if it is really a show. We spoke about in the retranscription
to remediate, to pass in another medium this experience, to transcribe maybe this experience.
And in the same way, because we challenged to present the artworks in public space, this means different way of showing, I guess.
Just to understand that you have the map and you have 5 points. Most of them, Benoit was saying yesterday that there's 3 kind of topologies maybe.
Yeah.
There's some industrial sites next to the harbor. That used to be the American base, so it was excluded from the city. The citizens were excluded from the coastline. Some archaeological or almost archaeological spaces, and then some unfinished buildings. Maybe you should also present to them
Yes.
your different activities.
Yeah, so let's start by that. So I'm invited as an artist and both curator because I'm running a space called Mosquito Coast Factory that I funded in 2010. The beginning of the project was building a project space, which is my studio, but at the same time it's a non-profit organization. We are 5 people running the place, 1 permanent plus me, and others people helping us in running the thing. So the first project was coming from building this factory in a way. This is 540 meters square. First, I can say how it could be possible for an artist as me with artist economy to do it. I mean, it's what I think it was a kind of comment, la chance et du hasard, luck and chance. Had the opportunity of make a SCI. I don't have the translation for this, but this is a Société Civile Immobilière, which means you bring many people together to make it possible. So it was in the first time an art studio, but also an archive place. So people could put some money to make it possible. And the other thing is, I was looking for an architect to collaborate, and I met by chance an architect who proposed me to make an exchange. So I did an artwork for the architect, and he did all the drawing stuff and helped me to build it. So, but once we did it, I didn't expect to do just for myself, but it was really important for me that the studio, as an artist studio, is also installed in an industrial area in the middle of the countryside, in what politics call, when French politics call zone blanche, which means, I would say, blurred zone, which means that cultural services, or most of it's contemporary art, doesn't exist, and we are the only one around. So it was a big challenge for us to be here. In the beginning, we didn't have financial support, so it was the more, I would say, philanthropic initiative. Like I'm passionate with art and creating as well. It was an opportunity for me to experience exhibition and as a curator, and it was really important for me to share. Not to be just with myself in my work, but to bring people, not just artists, but as well curators, designers, architects, I don't know, filmmakers, but just to think about this place as an experimental place, because if we speak about residency, I think the most important thing is the experimental way of practice and the connection, how to bring people together in a place, or how to propose a specific experience to artists or invited people. So what can I say about this? In the beginning, it was interesting because we got a special prize for this building. We didn't expect that, but we had a national prize called the Prix de la Première Œuvre. So we got the
Word of the
La Première Œuvre. It's the first building.
It was the first artwork or building?
Building.
Building. Okay.
And we got the prize in the Cité du Patrimoine et de l'Architecture in Chaillot in Paris, so it was really like a big focus on the building itself. So when we did the opening of the building, we had 400 persons. But after that, when we start to run the thing, like the show after the first residency, we had maybe 50 people. So I was just wondering how it could work, and like the region, the county of Pays de la Loire was telling me, why are you installing in the middle of nowhere? And I was saying, in my point of view, it's really important that art doesn't just exist in big cities, but maybe in out where, like Elevsina is a big city, but you don't expect to come and see firstly in your mind. You come in Athens, but you don't come in Elevsina. So I think it's really important in the way it can develop a vision about the territory. And the other thing was really important for me is we are like in the middle of two highways. It's an industrial area, as I said, like close to Mosquito Coast Factory, half an hour, no, 15 minutes from the building. There is a big harbor called Saint-Nazaire with petrol and chemical industry like in Elefsina, so I really feel close to Elefsina in a way, in many ways. And the other thing was, you know, artists, you can imagine artists choosing to install their studio in the middle of, you know, beautiful landscape and stuff. The landscape is not beautiful at all, but for me it was really important to be into, how can I say, the working life, and to be close to other company, contractors and stuff like that, and to be able to work, to be closer to them. I mean, not in the city center, but the place where there is companies and factories, and also to give the idea, to manifest the idea that art is inside, is generate an economy by itself, and it's not disconnected to the real life. So what can I say? Anne Langlois, who was coming with me, yeah, it's too long. I have many things to say.
Yes,
because it is a big story.
I give you one more minute, and then I will ask you questions, so we'll come back to you.
Okay, just quickly for Anne Langlois, she couldn't be there, but she's running another place called 40 Mètres Cubes in Arène, in Brittany, west of France, since more than 15 years now. So what could I say about 40 Mètres Cubes?
But why I thought about Benoit and Anne Langlois, who are the mentors of Initiator, is because Anne has like 20 years experience in Artist in Residence program. She has also much experience of commissioning artworks with local communities through some French frameworks that allow a local community to commission based on their desires and their needs and artwork. So that takes a long time, like 3 years, working with them. And as well, she's a teacher, she's a professor at the university, and her residency, maybe you can say that, it works for like 6 months or more, with artists, 7 months, with artists and curators at the same time. And it's called Generator, which I find it very interesting because, you know, it's something that pushes forward young and emerging artists, which is, you know, a key moment in the life of the artist. And of course has worked a lot with Benoit through many years, so they could, you know, collaborate very well together. And I think the combination of an artist and a curator was one of the keys that I would like to repeat. I think that it was a very important cohabitation, let's say. And I think that's that. Maybe we. And the last thing is that Rennes and Nantes, they're not like they're not capitals, and our main question is how we can become a capital of culture here. So it was very important to have similar examples, successful examples coming from abroad to share this knowledge, to share these secrets, let's say, because we are in Elefsina, so there are many secrets to share.
One last thing I wanted to say, and after I stop. I started to say we had 400 people in the beginning, and after that I was saying we had 50 on how to manage to bring people. And finally, 2 years ago, I was thinking about that, and this is because of a European program called LEADER, which is a program that finances innovating projects in the countryside. So we are applying for that, but it's a big job to apply, so we were preparing it, and it is un comité citoyen.
It's a community citizens.
Civilians committee. So they choose for something, a project they feel it is important. So they tell us it is really important you get involved in, with town and community. And I didn't even think about it. And when I started to try to work with town and neighborhood, it brings everything, like all the project shared, because now we don't think about Mosquito Coast Factory as a place where people are coming, but more the place where people are for residency, but producing artwork to install everywhere outside. So it's more becoming like an art public project for the neighborhood. So that's all.
I will ask you questions after
Yes.
this. So I will give the floor to, are you ready? Adas, Zoe, and Eva.
Thank you. We have a little slideshow prepared, little points. We're going to be reading. We're going to be reading some little text because I have this problem that I go blank in my brain when I have to talk about it. But yeah.
If you're reading the text, I need to have the text.
Huh?
If you're reading the text, I need to have the text.
No, it's just pointers.
Just pointers?
Yeah, I mean it's just like a little pointers. Yeah, it's not like a full text. Yeah. So yeah.
Τι λέει ο τεχνικός μας? Να σβήσουμε τα φώτα. Βλέπετε? Μην μου βάζετε δύσκολα.
Δεν είναι projector.
Εντάξει, αν βλέπετε πάμε.
I should sit here, huh? I'm in front of you. So we're just gonna go like quite quickly in the 5 minutes, go over the story of Adas. We are Adas. My name is Eva Istabsdóttir and
Zoe.
We're missing half of the team. That's Katrina Gallagher. She's in her master's studies now in Oxford, and then Noemi. She's doing her residency in Dakar. So it's not the full team here, but we're gonna explain the story of Adas. So me and Noemi came for a residency in Kipseli, Snekta residency. We stayed there for 2 months, and after our stay, we were so fascinated about Athens that we were like, yeah, this is the place where we want to go. Like love at first sight, we would say. So we decided to come back to Athens, and we had in our mind that we wanted to, of course, we're artists, practicing artists, all of us in the team. We wanted to have a studio, of course. But also as part of the studio, we wanted to have a place where we can present artists and projects and events. So at one of our openings or events, we met Zoe and Katrina, which are also the team. And we started asking about, if you know about any house or any place where we can open the space. And Zoe?
Yeah, and I said, yeah, well, I have this building which was derelict, was in a very bad situation. Since 2010, the renters have gone away. So that was 2016. Actually.
This was 2016.
So this building was hosting a Chinese restaurant since 2010. 2010 the renters went away and the building was, as I said, in a very bad condition. And it was just sitting there. There was no budget for, of course, renovating it. It was between 2010 and 2016. Was the time of crisis discussion, still is. So it needed a big budget because it's a neoclassical house, means it's 100 years old, needs a lot of money to renovate, it's listed, so you cannot really do whatever you want. And because it's an old house, it needs kind of really, there is a lot of issues in terms of heating, in terms of electricity, in terms of even using the walls because they're old and things are falling down when you try to put something up. Many issues. So anyway, when I met with Eva, Noemi and Katrina and I showed them the place, they loved it. And they were like, yes, we're going to renovating ourselves, which is an interesting aspect for me because I'm not in this DIY thinking at all. I was like, oh, you know, we need a lot of people to work here. We need a lot of budget. But they were like, no, we'll try to, you know, do some
work.
Yeah.
And then we also applied for crowdfunding.
And then we applied for crowdfunding.
Which we managed to do, and that's why actually the space is habitable. I'm just going to read a little about that DAS, because after we fixed the house, it took half a year to do this, we then decided to, as you can see, this is one of the studios, this is downstairs.
Just to say that the crowdfunding was from...
We Make It.
Yeah, it was We Make It. It was a Swiss platform.
Yeah.
Yeah? It wasn't
a
Greek.
Greek platform. No, it was a Swiss platform, yeah.
So it's important in terms of collaboration.
Exactly.
Which we're going to talk about further. So,
yeah.
sorry, go on.
ADAS is an artist-run project space and studios in Athens, founded in 2016 by an international group of artists and friends. The initiative began with the renovation as we...
If you read the text, actually you're not thinking. So if you're not thinking, I cannot translate.
Okay.
So either you speak freely, either I need to have
Or
the
leave
text.
the text.
Yeah, either slowly.
Yeah, just leave the text. Yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
Sorry,
Well,
it's
it's okay, it's okay. This is an interesting performance. So as you can see here, this is the, we have the, we're actually, so we have a, downstairs we have a project space for projects, exhibitions, events. The house has 4 studios. One of the studios is called In the House studio. We've had some issues with calling it a residency because a residency has different specific implications that we are not specifically offering in the house. We are offering artists that approach us quite, I was going to say biologically, but like naturally, organically, because we do not have an open call or something like can access this on the website. It's friends through friends or hearsay or word of mouth. So we call it In the House, this studio here, and you can live in the house. So you actually become part of the house and the action that happens in the house. I mean, as I said, there are 4 other studios in the house, so there's loads of action and events and exhibitions and all kinds of happenings. So now we're going to go briefly over a couple of projects that we've done. On the fact that when we started at DAS, we wanted to, it's 4 of us practicing artists, we're doing our own work, but we're also, through our own networking system, inviting artists to come and exhibit their work. But our first project started that we wanted to tell people that actually ADAS is a live thing, it never sleeps. It's something that there's full-on action inside the house. So we did this, if it sounds like bacon, you're doing it right. So we, Noemi Niederhauser curated this window exhibition. So she asked these artists to construct and create artwork using a specific window grid, as you can see on the first image. Where's the first image? There's no window.
So the window is this. I mean, the grid of the window was that. Yeah, we missed.
There's missing a...
Yeah, never mind.
Never mind. Okay, you can't see the window, but you can see the grid in some of the uppers, so the window actually looks like this. When we entered the house in the beginning of, the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, there was no window, there was a hole in the house. So actually the metal work on the outside of the house to protect the house is specially created, each of them individually welded together. So it was a project that was on for a whole,
For a year, and we invited different artists.
Yeah.
To collaborate.
And the second event that we did, also to let people know about Adas, we hosted a workshop, a ceramic workshop, that people were offered to come in and create handles on these cups. The Holy Grail.
So this idea was to open the house to the public and the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It wasn't only artists invited in this. It was February last year.
Yeah.
So we opened it up to the community, let's say, and the idea, and we had also children from the neighborhood, etc. So the idea was like they created handles, as you said, for the ceramic cups. And then we had a party.
A party that was an installation in the project space where we exhibited the cups, but you can also buy the cups in the opening, so it was also a fundraiser for us in a way.
So it worked in multi-level, let's say.
That was a good night.
Yeah. So it was getting to know us, what we do, what is the idea about ADAS, which is of course multidisciplinary and all, like inviting, trying to make this connection really of what we do and local, global.
It's like saying hello, we're here,
Yeah.
welcome, come for a coffee, have a look, and a natural. Like our main kind of essence of ADAS is having a quite influx and quite a natural approach to things. This is one of the
Another
projects
project.
that we did, Athena
Garden City, curated by Katrina and Fanis Kafadaris.
Exactly.
Again, it was open to public. It was kind of an open call. So it was also had to do with the neighborhood. There was a propagation workshop. In Likabetis Hill, and then there was part 2, which was Katrina and Fanis invited artists to bring a plant and design the garden, actually, of ADAS, with these plants, which they have their own stories. And that was also a way that worked for us and made the garden also a gathering place, which I think it works very, very well as part of the building. Then we've got the projects by studio guests.
So this is the thing, people ask us, they write to us and say that they're interested to come over and stay in ADAS for 1 or 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, it depends on what they want to do. And they often, it's not maybe because of certain things, but there's no, like, we don't tell them you need to have an event or host a talk or have an exhibition. It's a research-based residency, so actually the experience of the residency is based on your own research and how you approach the neighborhood, the local artist community, the local community. So this is one of the projects. Calvin Lang, he came from Scotland. He created the performance.
Stayed for 2 months.
Stayed for 1 month. And where his project was actually about the house, about his journey here and miscommunication. He did a feast, dinner in the garden, which is actually, there's been a couple of dinners in the garden. It's quite it's very interesting to meet for food, of course.
Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute.
1 more minute, okay, so we'll go really fast here.
Yeah, so that was another project. It's Len. It was a year casting. She also stayed with us for 1 month. And she worked on an idea that she was already working on. It was very interesting. Again, it was, you know, she invited people that they had their ear cast. She created a whole installation in the house, like being in a doctor's place. This was a concert, a rap concert.
There's performance that happens
Performance.
in courtyard. Anna Julia was a studio resident with us. She did an open studio where she invited people to come in. So all of these that we're actually showing you guys is different approaches of people that have stayed in Adas. This is a, I asked my, I studied with them in Edinburgh, so I asked them if it was a bad idea to come over. But maybe while we're going over,
Maybe we saw also the work of Lydia, which has to do also with Elefsina really fast.
Right. But because of why we're here and why this workshop is happening here, the program of Adas is not defined in a way. It comes through each of our networking system, or the four of us that actually are Adas, that have the studio inside the house. So it's quite a natural process of approaching, asking to come over. This is an off-site project that we did. So we are also a young project. We're learning as we go. I mean, we're 2 years old or something like this. And yeah, so it's...
I mean, the idea is basically that we don't work under a certain program. We learn as we go, as Eva said. And I think that this approach has worked really well for us and for people, for our guests. And what, I mean, we think is working very well is the idea that guests will come, will stay, without having a specific program. You said something about not to
Television, but
instrument,
that we'll see afterwards because I have to be strict at some point.
Sorry,
I didn't manage it for 1 month, so maybe it's not the time. Okay, thank you, Gladys. Nicholas with Gladys. Lucia at Residence. Kindred.
Hi, my name is Nicholas. I'm the artistic director. I have to sit somewhere where... Is it okay if I sit there?
Do you want to sit here?
No, it's for the translation. Good. So I'm an artist and I'm the artistic director of Lucy Art Residency. Lucy Art Residency is a residency program in Kavala, Greece, and it was founded in 2017. The residency is a short residency. It was initiated by a need. The need was personal, not mine. It was, I was asked to design and run the residency by another artist, Maria Mijali, that we have with us here. She's the founder of the residency. And the situation was thus. Maria, being an artist herself, she had spent her years mingling in the artistic circles in Athens and abroad. And she found herself at some point in her life being restricted in her movements because she became a mother. And it's a situation that a lot of female artists face at some point in their lives. And her family is in the accommodation business. They have 2 hotels, one in Kavala and one in Thassos. So when she became pregnant and when she basically gave birth, she spent a long time in Kavala and Thassos. And what happened was that suddenly she felt excluded and cut off from the artistic scene and from being in contact with people that shared her passions, and it was harder for her to get informed about what was happening in the art world. So she had this idea that if she could not go to and find the art and be part of the art production, she would invite them to the city of Kavala. So what we did is we sat down and we started discussing what would be the best way to do that. And one of the difficulties we had is we had to convince people to come to Kavala. Because this is, as you mentioned before, this is one of the problems that if it's not a well-known place, people are very reluctant to go there. So we basically created, we focused on two problems that we had. How do we convince people? So we created a marketing campaign, let's say, for that. And what would be the residency about? I'm an artist myself, and I've been part of many residencies, so what I felt that I wanted to design was the residency that I wanted to do. So basically, the concept of the residency is to provide free time to artists, but real free time. So everything is provided for: accommodation, flights, we bring the people to them, we open the city to them, they get a fee, per diem, production budget, and they also don't have to do anything, actually. So, and they stay in a 5-star hotel, they have swimming pools. But this is very important because we as cultural workers, we live in a precarious life. Income is not coming our way, and even when we are supporting our vacation, we still are not really on vacation, and we don't really think about stuff because we have so many things running at the same time. Or we work very long term in projects, and then we just rush into the next one. So this is our first resident artist in 2007, Sylvain, and he's a perfect example of what we were looking for. So what happens with sorry,
Point
so what we do is we invite 4 international and recognized people that work in the arts. And the first year it was a curator from Tate, a curator from Form in Amsterdam, a curator from Triennale Milano, and there's always someone from Greece. That year was Mr. Kafayam from the Kafayam Galleries. And they receive the applications and they choose the artist. The open call is free to apply, and we mainly photography-based residency. So we are interested in artists working with photography. And I mentioned before that Sylvain is a perfect example because I knew nothing about his work. But his need to have some free time was very evident to all the jurors, because he was working in a very big project for 2 years and was preparing for another very big project, and he needed some time to just think that, sit down and think about how he would approach this new project. So all the jurors, they see the applications by themselves because they live in different parts of the world, and they all chose as their top selection Sylvain, which for us it was a great revelation that our concept actually can pass on to people that are just being introduced to the residency. So yeah. So for us, it is very important that the community is built in Kavala. Everybody that is involved in the residency is invited in the city over a weekend. The jurors, the runner-up artists, the ones that didn't win the award, and of course the artist that is already there. And we open up the residency to the city of Kavala, because what we want to do in the end is that the city and the residency are working together. So we have the open talks program where the jurors present what they do to the people of Kavala. The artists present their work, not what they're doing in Kavala. It's more like an introduction to the contemporary art scene. And we present what the residency is about. We try to activate spaces that are not used very often in the city for such events. So for the first time we asked for the Archaeological Museum of Kavala, and we did the talks there. I was very pessimistic about people coming because our budget was low and we didn't have live translation like we do tonight. But actually we were packed, and we were packed. It was also raining a lot on that day. But we were packed, and we were packed from people of all ages. Everybody that came stayed, which was also a good indication because it was a long night. And the things that were discussed were not of particular interest to people that are not of the artistic scene, let's say, but they are revelatory because the curators presented, for example, how they work with young artists, how the museums and institutions work with artists. And you would expect some old couples in their 70s that are not part of the artistic scene in the city of Kavala that they might not be interested in. It's like, why do I care how Tate works with young artists and how they build their collection? But actually the comments that we received later is that they loved that because it was something that they don't hear very often. Every year we open the applications around December and November, and the jury changes every year, but we try to keep a connection with the previous year, so almost everybody that has been involved in the first version was also somehow involved in the second version. So Sylvain was part of the jury. I'm a non-voting member of the jury. I just make sure that everything works out. And these are the artists that we have this year. The questions that we might do I say now how we work with the city, or do we discuss it later?
2 more minutes.
Yeah, but
I give 10.
yeah, but the question is, do we discuss this now, how we work with the city, or is there a
I will
process?
ask maybe during the questions.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk about that. As I said, it's very important that the artists, that everybody that's involved meet at a physical space. So I said we invite all the jurors up to come to the city, and they spend a day with the artists, talking, having coffee, discussing, meeting each other, having lunch, dinner. And every year we try to add something that to the program. This year we had a workshop. The workshop was about producing a book in the city of Kavala that would also involve people from the city. So we collaborate with Clara and Tobias, which were the runner-up artists from the first year. As I said, every year we try for this community to grow larger. And they are specializing in artist book production. And Void, which is an art space in Athens, that they also specialize in the publication of artist books. Together we designed this workshop that's called 1 + 1 = 3, as an Ekdochi Kavala. We made an open call for artists that were interested to come to Kavala, but we kept at least 33% for people from Kavala. Yes, you want to? Yeah, we're very close. So yeah, these are the artists. They produced the book. We used the Castle of Kavala this year. We asked from the municipality to provide us with the space where they could work. Yeah, so they worked over a week at the same time contemporaneously with the artists that were doing the residency. And we did, again, the public talks where everybody was invited in another public space in the city, the Fortress of Kavala. We are patient here. Yeah. The room was full again. There is a running theme about babies in this residency. The artist on the right came with their baby that was born shortly before. Last year everything happened because of babies. Next year we are expecting more people with babies. So it's very, very much baby friendly. The people of Kavala were very interested in what was produced in their city, and they wanted to get hands-on. And the last thing that I'm going to say before closing up is that everything that we produce has the goal of being public. So the people that come, they bring with them books and artist books that we try to build this open library. This is in the hotel lobby that presents the residency. Also, after the artists leave, they have 6 months to produce a work that is inspired by the residency. So not during the residency, but they have 6 months after they leave to do something and send it back. And we present it during the next residency program. And this is open for everyone. They can access the books, they can go and read what they bring, they can see the artworks. Because the lobby of an hotel, of course, is like an open space. And that's it. Because we are out of time.
Thank you. Petro?
I am Petros Loudis. I'm an artist as well. I run this platform, this is how I call it, Tinos Quarry platform on Tinos Island in Northern Cyclades. Contrast with the previous, I'm living there in a very nice place with a nice beaches and the environment, with this kind of vast cycladic landscape. So I used to live there for 6 years, renovating on I just wanted to escape from Athens in 2004, and I just went there and stayed in that village, 300 meters above the sea level. It's like a big balcony, you see all the agency and so on, and it was so nice, and I had so nice time there and working, and then I just decided to build this platform and share my experience with other people. So that's my motivation here, and so it would be easier for me to read the text that I was commissioned to write last March. For an online publication, artseverywhere.ca. It was a text that I wrote about, I was asked to write something about the duration of the residencies, and also the placemaking in general, and the artists in residence. So I'm going to read it to you. And at the same time, you can see some works that I don't have time to explain, but it's going to be like a visual kind of, yeah. So, my text was had the title Art and Content. So the dematerialization of the art object and the participatory turn of the art in the 60s shifted the location of value from the egocentric position of the artist to the interaction between the artist and the community, creating a space out of the gallery for anti-individualistic participatory art. The artist became a catalyst for the creativity of others. Thus, the personal became political, anti-visual, informational, textual, expositional, didactic, gestural, and thus gave further value to the art with the community in context. In Greece, today there is a general lack of public resources and opportunities for artists. Initiated in 2015, Tinos Quarry platform, TQP, has tried to address this lack by creating a forum that engages with various genres of dialectics, including an artist-in-residence program located in the remote village of Isternia on Tinos Island in the northern Cyclades. Experimental in nature, TQP strives to foster a political, social, and aesthetic process, a socially engaged combination of performance, research, and learning that promotes intersubjective exchange by linking people together within a common frame. The program is mainly supported by a local cultural foundation, the Cultural Foundation in Tinos, where these exhibitions happen every year. Tinos Quarry platform took its name from the marble quarries that have been operating since antiquity in the area near the village. Partly as a result of the presence of the quarries, Tinos Island has a long tradition in sculptures such as the prominent modernist artist Eleusis, among many other important artists, further reinforce that long tradition on the island. This program invites curators and artists and theoreticians, voices from various fields and countries to collaborate on curated process-based projects in the vast cycladic landscape in the middle of the Aegean archipelago. TQP leaves it to the resident practitioners to potentially get involved with the culture and the history of the place in any way they might see fit. Inspired by the abundance of marble, a number of past invited artists have encountered this material for the first time in their practice, leading to collaboration with local masters. Collaborations have also emerged in the past with artisans from different fields such as ceramicists, weavers and basket makers. These ephemeral micro-communities of human interaction seem to play a significant role for the locals and for the visitors who both seek creative references to experiment with and to relate to their practice. The duration of its residency draws upon decision-making, emotional capacity and commitment of the invited collaborators. This often happens in conversation with invited practitioners and through a feedback process in preparation for the residency that reflects the values and the qualities of its approach, but also practical considerations and tactical thinking. This asks something of each of these relationships, initiating its participating artists to familiarize themselves with the place and introduce their works to a foreign environment. We often ask how, if at all, this conversation influenced their work. To maintain flexibility and given our time and financial constraints, TQP has not issued an open call so far. For the same reasons, the duration of the residencies has also shifted over the years. Initially, in 2015, each artist stayed on the island for a month, which we found to be the optimal time to settle in a place like Tinos and get familiar with the island life and be able to produce work. At that phase, newcomers are encountered to build up gradually their relationship to the place, with given information concerning the culture and the history too, whilst they are formulating ideas and intentions about their potential work. Along with the curatorial approach, that exchange helps to organize their practical studio needs amongst other potential needs. It's about creating a flow that incorporates the notion of both subjective and objective time, which is to a great extent sharing the duration of the planning until the implementation and the final outcome of the residency. That's when the group exhibition takes place, tangible result of the program. Consequently, the shape of the residency is redefined organically every year, literally until the last minute, in response to the specific project and group of artists gathered for that project. That flexibility is a source of surprise, determining strategies of how to engage with both the limitations and the opportunities for experimentation that such a situation can provide. Potentially, this may lead to mistakes. Nevertheless, learning from mistakes can produce meaning, especially for small-scale projects like this. That's it. Oh, yeah, okay. Sometimes seizing the opportunity, that's shower time, the marble. I have finished already. Sometimes seizing the opportunity to take an off-grid experience makes us think more clearly about our urban lives in the cities. So.
Muriel Petier from the French Institute. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm the only one that's going to be talking from an institutional point of view. As you know, the French Institute is part of a big network of 96 institutes all over the world. We are the operator of the French Embassy for all the matters of cultural cooperation, which means education, university, but as well arts. And I'm responsible here in Greece for the cultural cooperation between Greece and France. We do have major residency all over the world. That the most famous one is in Japan. Maybe some of you know about it. It's the Villa Juliana, which is open to the French artist who wants to do residency abroad. As well as we have another program called Parvenue, which is outside the wall. This is run by the French Institute in Paris. And we also have residency for foreigners, non-French artists. We want to do residency in France, and the most famous one and the biggest one, but it's not the only one, is the Cité Nationale des Arts in France. We published every year the call on the website of the French Institute for people who want to go and spend, I think the minimum is 3 months to 6 months. Everything is included, everything is paid for the residency and any subject, any fields is covered by this residency. So this is on the international scale. Now, last year, for the 111 years anniversary of the French Institute, we decided to open a residency inside the French Institute in Athens. It's a Sina Street. We have 2 bedrooms accommodation for artists, and we also have the space of the Institute, and we decided to ask 3 artists to come and to work on a theme that was read the past and write the future. One, and the only obligation that they had is to be working with a Greek artist. This is obligatory. So we had a musician, French Lebanese musician, who came in residency for 10 days, even 2 weeks I think, and worked with a Greek artist on music, and they gave a concert here in Elευσίνα. I think it was for the night of slowness, which was on the 18th of May or the 19th of May, which was very nice, and a very nice place. And thank you again for Elευσίνα because it was a special night.
Thank you very much. It was on, if you know, from Elευσίνα, an Agios Nikolaos, the Church of Agios Nikolaos. It's in the archaeological space, and you have to climb a little bit, and you have all the stratas of Elευσίνα. You have the harbor, you see the industrial part, the archaeological part, and you're in an archaeological space which was a religious space, and you have an Orthodox church. Sorry.
So this is one of the residencies we had last year, and the second residency was a residency that was, but Eleni, she's not here, but she will be here soon, who run for 6 months and even more than that inside the institute with a Greek artist and a French artist. Actually, they are couple, French and Greek artists as well, and they did work with the staff of the institute. People that are here for many years, most of them, maybe some of them are here for 30 years, others are here for 10 years, but a lot of them are here for a long time. And they were working all together to work on this theme, past and future. So they did, if you want to come at the institute, you will see the work. It's most of the work is on the wall. Have you seen it? It's a big tree. Well, you can come and see it because it's work that is going to stay for at least a few years. That was the second residency that we did, and the third one, it's someone that you know. It's Anne-Laure Franchette. She's a French artist but living in Switzerland, and she came. She already had done another
Why residency?
yes, a residency at the Yellow Brick.
Why residency?
She did both.
She did both.
Yes, she did white and she did the yellow. And yes, and she did another residency with us on what she studied and she made a research on wild herbs. You know the herbs, the wild herbs that you can find. And she did an exhibition you still have one of the piece that you can see in the garden of the institute. This is the first time that we were running, and it was something really new for us as an institution, but I really believe that the French Institute should be a place for artists to create, and not only French artists, for all artists to come and create. So this is a new thing for us, and this year we're going to have an artist coming for the landscape. On the top of the institute is a huge roof with wonderful view, and we just renovated it, and it's going to be finished in a few weeks. And I was able to get a piece of it to make a green roof, which I think is one of the main problems in Athens. If we could have all one green, then it will change completely the cities. We're talking about ecology and so on. So we will have someone coming to work with us for the roof, and as well it will be training artists and non-artists on this thing. So let's see. Then afterwards, the second residency that is very, very important for the cooperation between France and Greece is the residency that we are opening now in Rhodos. I don't know if you heard about it, but the French government has a huge and wonderful inn, Auberge de France, in the city, in the old city of Rhodos. And actually, it's not an open place. You can go and see, but it's more for concert afters. And we want to be opening to artists to come and to work on the subject. It's a subject linked to art and craft, which is ceramic. So we were able to be part of a new program called La Fabrique des Résidences, which is running by the French Institute in Paris. And we submit what it's called. We submit a proposal, and we were elected among a lot of other institutes. 6 of us were selected, and one of the selected institute was the French one, the Athens Institute. So I'm very proud of it. And it's a program that we're going to be running for 3 years, meaning that we have a financial budget for that, which is very important, which means that we can get a full accommodation and as well fees for the residents to come and to work. We're not sure yet if we could use the Auberge de France to do all the work, the study, yes, but it's difficult to implant an oven in a historical building. I don't think we're going to be allowed to do it. So we have to work, and that was part of the residency, is to be working with artists from Rhodos. So we do work with ceramic, because ceramic is something that it's not in Rhodos. So we are working on Rhodos, and we are working on this specific ceramic that we made in Rhodos. So we used to make in Rhodos. So our first artist will come in Rhodos in a few weeks, and she will be there for a month. She will be, for this residency, she will be study the design. She will start from the ancient design of the ceramic to make it, propose something more modern, more contemporary. And she will also see how it fits. If we have everything organized, everything it's a pilot residency to see if everything is fine. Then we will try to welcome 3 more artists in 2019, as well as Greek artists. It's going to be both Greek artists and French artists. And in 2020, we should open it to European artists, and more likely to Mediterranean artists. I guess.
Yes. Don't have more time. Sorry.
More time? No, but I don't have any more to say.
Management service, Electronic και κουμαριά ρέτηση. Έχετε όλοι πολλές ιδιότητες.
Well, I'm part of the Electronic Collective. It started actually its first initiative in 2006. We started the residency in 2009 as a way to actually collect in one space, in one place, all the DEA members who are around the world or in different towns of Athens, in Greece and in Athens, in one place to work for them. And we actually, when we started the initiative, we said, okay, why don't we do an open call? Let's see who wants to come at Koumaria. Koumaria is the name of the residency. Koumaria.gr, it's at a village in Greece that has about 150 inhabitants right now, between Tripoli and Sparta. The house is outside the region of the village, so there is no direct access to the village unless you walk for 20 to 30 minutes. It's a very isolated place in the middle of the landscape of Greece. And we did an open call, and we had 60 applications. And since then, the open call has become a tool for us to invite artists of different art genres to collaborate with Media Electronic members. So I'm going to use some words now that we can go on with the discussion afterwards. So we have a collective run residency, we don't have curators. We choose artists from an open call. The artists are of any age and any practice. They come for 10 days once a year in Eleusis, and they have to produce one or more collective artworks. So, and they have to produce it, so they come in order to produce work. It's free, food is free, accommodation is free. Sometimes they get a per diem. Well, they don't have anywhere to use it or spend it. But when we have some extra money, we give them. It started as a self-funded residency. All Media Electronic profits, 10% goes to the residency. So this way we can fund different artists to come. And here I have to mention that there is an emerging market for residency artists and residencies. And some people are outside of this market, and there is many young artists that they cannot enter the market because either they don't have access to the money, they don't have access to support. And we wanted to be able to get people, to get artists that are 20, 22 years old, and more mature artists that they have the funding. So from now we have about 200 to 300 applications a year, and we get 6 to 8 residents who they come to Eleusis to work. We have produced over, actually I don't remember how many they are, but there are many video artworks, about 100, 120, different performances. There is no studio space, because the studio space is the village, are the coffee shops, are the houses, are the old olive factories, places that the villagers used to use in order to produce in the village up to the 1980s or 1970s, depending on when they closed. We use the mountains. We use as a production actually method improvisation. So improvisation is a production methodology for fixed media art, for installation art, for all of these mediums that they are produced there. We don't have a curator. For the residency is collectively curated. So Media Electronic is there to host, but participate in the works equally. We make a small studio in order to accommodate the artists that they come. So we support them in technology, as much technology you can have in place. That up to last year we didn't even have internet, but yeah. So pretty much it's a collectively run residency which was started as a self-funded initiative, and now with various collaborations we get some support to give back to the artists. So we started from the avant-garde scene of Greece and other countries from wherever their residents or their members come from. And that was something that, the residency is something that always keeps us into that genre of music, film and performance. So that's why we've done it for like 10, 11 years now. So that's what it is. And maybe we can go on with
Questions?
the questions.
Well, I will start with you because you were the last one. So I will start with some questions and then give the floor to everybody else to speak. While I was talking on the phone like a week ago with Manolis, and it was a long talk and very interesting, you told me about the ritual, let's say, of how the artist is coming and how is his encounter with the city. And I'd like to ask you to explain this process, this ritual, of how you integrate the artist organically in this place.
Well, the artists, when they come, we have a meeting point, which is Eleusis, obviously. But so we collectively pick them up. And the first meeting is in the bus that brings them to Selasia. So they all have to come, let's say, on Monday, up to 5 o'clock in the evening. And we insist on that. We insist that they all come to the place at the same time for the first dinner. This is very important because usually you get to Selasia around 9 o'clock at night and it's pitch black. You see an empty, almost empty village, and you get to an olive grove that everything is pitch black. So you have the first actually dinner that is offered. And then when they wake up in the morning, they see the vast view of Mount Eleusis. I have to mention that they all come with proposals, and we've never had a proposal that they brought down. So nothing of the proposal has ever been produced, because they come from major cities of the world as new emerging artists or older artists that have been working in the market, and suddenly they're in a place that doesn't offer anything, in quotes, anything that a major city offers. And when they wake up and they have the first coffee, we do the first walk. And we have a local, in quotes, a local historian, in quotes, but it's a guy whose name is Yannis Pakatanakis, who has written down the history of Selasia and takes them through a walk and shows each part of the village and the neighborhoods of the village. And so this is the first thing that they come in contact with. The history, the story of the village, where they are. They ask about the surroundings, we take them to the own productive spaces that they own grow and stuff like that. So this is pretty much the very, very first thing that they do. They eat collectively, they wake up, not collectively, but they wake up, and then they take a walk around the village. And if they come on a Saturday, so they wake up on Sunday, we go to the coffee shop where they're offered cognac and a piece of cheese at 10 o'clock in the morning, like they do it after church. Oh, and they jump. They have to jump. The first day they come, they jump. They play music, so we improvise. So we play music together, we dance together, we try to do something to break the ice between all the artists that they encounter. The very first night, yeah. And every night, but I mean, try to start from the first night.
And I will ask the same question to Adas, to Zoe, because it was not clear to me how you do that, the integration of the artist in the city, if you do that, and if you're able to do that. But I had a gap there, so I'm curious to know.
Yeah.
It's never the same, actually, because it depends on who is in the house at the time, because we're always traveling because of projects. So sometimes the artist meets only me and Zoe, sometimes the artist meets only Noemi or Katrina. So there's no specific program that the artist goes to.
But the idea is that we have created a space there. We have tried to network the space, let's say, to Athens, to the neighborhood, And the idea is that the artist comes in with no particular program, something that, I mean, we let them know that, you know, it's up to you to find what it interests you in the city being here. And what we've got here is like a live space that people come in, come out, and you have the chance to meet them. It's up to you how much you want to do that. We will, of course, show you some places and kind of guide you around the city as a visitor. And you have the chance here to meet people, as many as you wish, and kind of make the connections you want. So the idea is really about being free to do your style. You can work if you want, or you're free to just stay there as a visitor and meet Athens, like, pass your time there, like, really. Or if you want, and if you want to be involved more, it's really up to you. But because it does, I mean, it's all the time things are happening there, it's, again, it is a meeting place. So, I mean, you cannot really avoid that, since you live in there. So the idea is like, of course, it's up to you to involve as much as you like, but whatever is happening is there, is in your feet, let's say. So you can grab it or kind of like, you know, just observe it. So we had like cases of artists that they came and now, it was Jacques, Swiss artist, that really came, lived for 2 months, decided not to do something, not to put up an event or a show, and just take this time to do some research and meet people. And I think yeah, it was really
but
good.
in the second month he decided also to host a little dinner in the courtyard.
Yeah.
So he actually, through his own connection networking system, he invited people, had a big dinner in the courtyard. So that was his kind of
fondue dinner.
Fondue, actually.
Yes. And
it was extraordinary, and also he brought his own wine. He has a wine.
Yeah, it was his family. So I mean,
it was a wine tasting session. No, I mean, yeah, it's up to the artist.
Nicola, I would like to know how the local community reacted to the residency. That was something that captured my attention while we were talking about the project.
So, our strategy is basically to tease them and increase the tease every year. So basically we started very low key. We informed Dimophelia, that is like the private company of the municipality that is responsible for all cultural affairs in the city. We told them that we need something, so we went to them and we just told them we're going to do that, but we don't want you. We don't care, we just informed them about that. And this really annoyed them. It's like, but everybody comes and asks for something. It's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And also but at the same time while we were doing that, we came into contact with the local amateur clubs, amateur photography clubs. That it's the polar opposite of contemporary art photography. So we went straight to them and we informed them that we are going to do this. And we asked for their advice. And we started planting seeds to people that we knew in the city that were from different backgrounds, and we also let them know that this is going to happen. So by the time the residency itself is very low key because it's for the artists, but the public talks are very public. So we make sure that as many people as possible know about it and that it's in a very central place that is used by the municipality for other reasons. So our first test was to see if through basically spreading rumors about this thing, if people would come. And they came. So this showed us that there's a lot of interest. We involve the community, like not exactly the community, but we involve people of the community. So we have compiled a list of people that we think are very interesting and they're doing interesting work in the city, like an oceanographer, a hoarder of trinkets, the house, the Swedish House of Kavala, because Sweden has a residency program in the city. So we let them know that we are there and that we are going to perhaps give their contact numbers to the artists that will arrive, and they might contact them. Local fishermen, the quarries in Thassos, but we don't really tell anybody what's really going to happen. So it's everybody's just expecting something. And this went to an extreme this year because we did a sort of publicity campaign. So we worked with two girls that work in press, basically in Thessaloniki, and we asked them to get us in contact with local papers because we found out that people in small cities really read their local newspapers. So we had interviews with local stations in Thessaloniki, with the Kavala News, Kavala Post, websites, blogs that are very obscure, but people in Kavala know about it. So our artists this year, they would go and speak with someone and they would be like, oh, you're the guys that are doing the presentation. It's like, how do you know about it? I read it in the newspaper. And the project that they did, because we said that artists have free time, but when you give them free time, they start to freak out and they start doing projects. So that's what happened in both years. So the artists that we have this year, they collaborated with the local newspaper to create a fake story about an iceberg coming to Kavala. And they also collaborated with the news, so we created a connection with the local newspaper, the local radio station, and it was a very long process to work through it, but they did it, and there was this article in the newspaper, and there was this interview on the local station, and people, when we did the public talks, were talking about it, but in a rumor level. So me, because I can speak Greek, of course, I could hear them talking about it, but they would not make the connection with the artists. So Dimophilia is helping us now. They are helping us with the spaces more, because our goal, I said in the beginning that we had a marketing strategy. So in order for people to get interested in this, we showed sun and sea. So we started the residency in the summer. But our goal is to have residencies in the winter too, longer residencies, so that people will come in Kavala and spend more time there. And for that we need some studio space, because this is going to be a small-based residency. But you cannot start with that. You cannot invite people in Kavala in the winter before you have a name that you can sell to them. So Dimophilia is crucial to that, because we want from them to give us some of the empty spaces to basically reactivate them. These are some of the strategies. There are more, but we can go to other people and we can come back to it, because there are more things that happen in the city, basically.
Before we get back to that, I wanted to ask Miriel and Petros how they work with the municipality and the region in Pinos and in what we're doing now in Rhodos.
Okay, for us it's very easy. It's very easy because we have a statute of embassy, so it's easy to get the support. So we do work in how do you call it? The periferia, for Rhodos. We don't work with the city of Rhodos, but only with the periferia. And we also work with the fine arts of Athens for the residency of Rhodos, because they have, as you know, an annex. They have it's called an annex in Rhodos, so we do work with them for the accommodation, and as well we will be working with them maybe on the Greek art, on the selection of the Greek artists. But for the peripheria, the regions, we're going to sign an agreement with them, and they will actually they were the one that were asking us to do something there, and didn't know what to do, and we came up with this proposal. So, because they already are partner on the Auberge de France, they are responsible for the maintenance of the Auberge de France. It's an agreement between France and the region. I don't know if I answered the question, but
I wanted to see the difference.
it's a very close collaboration.
And you said in the beginning that you're supported by...
Yes. When I started this idea of the platform, maybe it was really very vital, this partnership that emerged with this foundation, TA, which they support me, and they will have some budget every year that I work on and try to figure out how I'm gonna deal with it. They are a secular kind of organization supported by the Church of Tinos, actually. The church gives a lot of money in many kinds of different places around the city, because it's like really very dominant thing in cultural also kind of thing on Tinos Island. So I have this kind of support, and what else? Yeah, the municipality is something different, but they also help by providing this former primary school in Estonia, which I use for studios, like a very beautiful kind of not neoclassical, but this kind of cycladic, I don't know how to say, big old schools with like two very big halls that people share the studios there. Yeah.
And I have one last question for Benoit, and then you can ask questions if you want. You were talking a lot about, your region, where is very much alike with Elευσίνα, even if it's very... Well, there are many differences and many similarities, let's say, but in terms of landscape, it has many things in common.
Yes.
And how you decided to work in the public space and sculpture artworks. I would like to know, what do you think about how you integrated these artworks in the daily life of people? The encounter of the daily encounter of the artwork.
This is the beginning, so it's hard to say. We didn't do so much permanent works. Like the major one was delivered, constructed a few months ago. It's hard to say. I would say the specific thing of Mosquito Coast Factory is I don't remember who was saying that, but or you did. Like coming to without anything to ask. In a way, we started with that because we proposed to make a permanent artwork in a park near lake in the town. But we proposed to do that, but we were paying for that. The municipality doesn't have to give anything. But we asked like the garden services to help us with the machine and bulldozers and stuff like that. So it was not about money, but more about involving services in the construction. That was the starting point. And what else? Like this project of Laurent Levin, which is a French artist from Bordeaux, who's doing mainly sculpture, was to build a garden within the garden. It's called Jurassic France. And the main idea was doing a garden, because you know how artificial is a park in cities, and he wanted to make a garden with just Jurassic spaces, you know, from Jurassic era. So, and in the middle of this plants, because it's just plants, so it's also interesting to see how you can see plants as a structure or just as a garden. And in the middle of these plants, there were dinosaur footprints, like pound. Thank you. Pound with water in it.
A pond.
A pond. And so people can see it as a garden, and at the same time it is an artwork. So it's a kind of a subtle approach. And that was the first one. And the second one was not this town, but the one before, beside. They got a really strong history with American presence, like in Elewsina, I would say. But earlier, with the First World War, we host the major American hospital during the First World War. How can I say? You know, in 1917, first soldiers from America came. It was 15,000 people, and one year after, it was 2 million people coming to fight at the end of the war, the First World War. So it's a forgotten story for American people. We celebrate in France, so we are really still aware about it, but there is kind of confusion, like a lot of people were thinking American presence was related with the Second World War, but no, it's not the First World War. But anyway, and the thing is, it's not so long time ago, but yeah, a lot of people forgot. But what I want to say is, American people built the World Hospital in America, took it on the boat, come in Saint-Nazaire, and built like huge, 50 hectares d'hôpital.
Hospital.
Yeah, and they built also a barrage. Sorry for my English. It's
We had the same night, so
a barrage.
an obstacle? No, a barrier?
Non, le barrage électrique, c'est ça?
Un barrage, ouais.
Ένα φράγμα. Φράγμα με ομόνιο νομί.
Dam.
Thank you for that. So we met the municipality, and we bring the idea of making a collaboration, and the starting point was working with the history and the patrimony of the places as a starting point of making artworks. It's what could I say about that? I mean, you were asking about what is the relationship with the viewer and
Yes.
people, from the locals to the artworks. I would say we're bringing artworks in what they are, in everyday life. I couldn't be more simple in my explanation. And because we are doing that, we are
Public art pieces.
Hmm?
They're in public. I mean, so they're automatically.
I was using a comparison with Initiator. I was saying it's like putting a mirror reflecting your own image. So we are dealing on trying to invite artists to work with things that are already here.
Site specific.
Site specific. Like, for just one example, one of the artists we invited was really related to boxing. Because his grandfather was a boxing champion and a really famous one and died really young. So it's still really present in the work of this artist. So he did a performance involving the boxing club of the town. Like Evie, one of the artists in Elewsina, is practicing box in London, and when she came here, the first thing she did, one of the first things she did is going to practice box in Elewsina. And it's interesting because she's saying it's not just about boxing, but it's about meeting communities and different communities.
And the people that she was going to the kickboxing club in Eleusis came yesterday at the opening of the initiator. And they were very happy, and it's probably the first time that they came to the art exhibition. Maybe we should have some questions. We don't have any more time. If you want to stay with us and don't have lunch, you're very welcome. But yes, the floor to you. Who has a question or a comment or something that wants to share?
Before the question, can I finish something about the municipality on the So in the municipality in Ophelia, there's a group of young people that work there that are very supportive because it's like all of them studied abroad. Then at some point, because they were from Kavala, they came back, and they are really helping us out. So now we have a very good collaboration with them. And the point that worked very well was because we did not ask something, we did not ask them to ask for something from their superiors, but we showed first to their superiors what happened, so that when they went and they said, see, this is a good idea, their superiors were very happy to actually give the money this year for the tickets of the people that are. So the flights this year will be covered from the municipality for the people that will come to Kavala, because it's like, okay, yeah, we want these people here. It was great. Or, okay, it's great that Kavala was on national television at 3. We like that, so you show that to them, and then they're like, okay, I know what you're talking about. So Dinos, for example, that is like the personal contact there, he is very, very active. And he also was missing that, because he studied in the UK, he made a family in Kavala, so he came back, and he was like, I want to activate these things. It's really hard to describe them. When you go and tell them, I want a contemporary art event with people that will come, it was like his boss would be like, what's the point in this? But now when she saw that all these people from the city are involved, it's like, okay, yeah, let's see what we can do.
Anybody?
I want to clarify 2 things. First, Benoit, the place you described in the middle of nowhere, how many residents has or how many workers pass every day? I mean, approximately, how many people are around?
In the beginning, I did it on myself, so I didn't count in a way. It was coming organically. And but the first years we had 1 resident per year. But
excuse me, because maybe not very clear my question.
Yeah.
I mean, the town, how many residents has, or how many?
the population. Oh, sorry. The town is 5,000 inhabitants. Yeah. So I don't count the
many
cows.
workers come every day for the factories and companies, or
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that number increases.
It's because we are in between 2 big cities. This is more like in cité dortoir. I don't know how to say that, but you know, people go and work in the city and come back to live in the countryside. But you know, people will access. People will access to culture going They're going to see exhibition in the place where they're working, and they don't go to see exhibition in the place where they are living, which is a bit ridiculous, I think. So we try to make it possible.
Thank you.
What?
I have a question, Doug. I don't know anything else. It's all new to me, but I want to ask, assuming one has a place where one can invite artists to come and stay, and I heard from one scenario was that they will provide me food and part of the accommodation will provide me food paid for by the people having the accommodation. But in other cases, what happens? Well, if one doesn't have the funding to provide food for the artist, just a bed and breakfast, just a bed, let's say, what's the procedure? I mean, do artists come and stay without having food provided by them? They cater for themselves? How does it work?
It's for a particular person, or anybody can answer?
Anybody, because I saw different examples being detailed here.
But for us, for example, we give fees. We give a fee that covers everything. We cover the accommodation, the food, and we give money for the work. And to pay as well for materials, because we need to buy things, right? So it's an envelope. It's a full envelope that covers everything.
Okay, but if it's
But the artist doesn't have to pay.
The artist?
The artist doesn't pay to come.
Yeah.
We pay them to do the residency.
Well, depending if it's a small artist run space, sometimes
like that show,
everybody is chipping in. The mothers are cooking, people are washing your clothes, you do a little errand for somebody and you get some money. So it's depending the case. You have some detail on
Yes,
this?
there are, artists actually, especially in Northern Europe or in Northern America, they have access to funds either from the university or from local institutions that they get travel fund. So comparing to artists, I don't want to make this deviation, but comparing to artists that they come from the Mediterranean mostly, or from the Middle East, they're kind of more well supported in order to enter this emerging market of residency. So we have artists right now who are by profession residency artists. And they are able actually to maintain themselves throughout, and they travel from residency to residency throughout the year creating work. So this is really happening. In our residency we've had artists like that. And you can actually find out, because you sign all these papers every year about, where they get, in order to get the funds and stuff like that. So pretty much that's why I make this assumption about Northern Europe or North America. And so that's one way of doing it. And then you have artists that they don't have access to this money, that they travel to residencies with their own funds or with whatever the residency can actually give them in order to enter the market of the funding of the artists, because it has opened up now and closed to artists that they can write a correct application.
But for example, for Eleusis, because it's an anonymous municipal company, if we go by the laws that are in Greece, it's very difficult to convince that you give a per diem, you give a fee to the art, not a fee actually, financial support to pay for his food. Or you pay the trip of somebody, his accommodation or his flights. That's something that you have to work very hard to explain to the council of the town, and also because every expense goes up to the APIA, goes on the internet, and anybody can see. People don't agree with that, and sometimes in the beginning they were like, no, you cannot pay for a taxi, you cannot pay for food, you cannot pay for the flight. So again, we have to find other ways, like commissioning, for example, a private company to do the things that we cannot do and we cannot provide to the artists. So nowadays we are trying to change the mentality. That's why these meetings happen as well. Because people that are coming from local small administrations meet for the first time with artists and curators and understand the necessity of this.
Proving the cost. You need to prove yourself in order to get other funding.
but you know, when you go and you explain that, they're like, but he's a freelancer.
Yeah.
It's this logic. Why I should pay him to eat? He comes for a work. For them, it's like a work. So you give him a fee. But then again, what kind of work is that? Because if you go by the law, it's you have to ask, for example, for artists a guarantee that they did well their work. You can do that when it's a street, but when it's an artwork, how you decide if it was well done?
You're talking about the relation of the art residency with the municipality, which is the funding sector, to the residency.
It's our case, actually.
Okay.
It seems to me that, according to my expectations of this workshop, that we're going to talk about how the artist becomes a local. And I think that so far we heard about the business models of the residencies rather than the transformation or the possibility of the artist performing the local or inhabiting this role. Okay? And I mean, to me, being a resident artist is a privilege. It's a huge privilege. I experienced it with Institut Français des Arts. And instead of making work, I ended up completely altering my idea of citizenship. And I started working with informal education, for example. So I'd like your opinion about this possibility of transformation, what it means local, if there's a connection with civic or, let's say, local politics involved in each of your practices, and if there's, I mean, it's a long sort of topic that it's the end of the session, but I think that, you know, I came to discuss this here, so I don't know how to respond to this.
Well,
Maybe you want to say
the question is how the artist becomes local.
If, I mean, this was the title.
How the
Okay?
town is
I think that we talk more about the business models of residencies.
In the case of Koumaria, which is it's a place that actually is so different, like all the other places in Greece. I mean, wherever you visit a place more than a few days, or maybe time doesn't really matter. You get a connection with the place. You either hate it or love it, and then through this relationship, you start creating projects. When you go, I mean, when they come to us, I'll be more specific. I mean, when you take them to the threshing floor, where they used to produce, to separate the wheat from the wheat, and you tell them the story, and then you have the old man who is 95 years old telling them the trade decisions that he made in the 1940s or whatever he remembers and stuff like that. And they get their first inspiration and the first contact. So this is a contact that they have, and they get inspired in order to produce a work. I mean, this year with Kyria Konstantina, who is the eldest actually in the village, is 97, we got the residents to go into her house. She recited poems. She has an excellent, she recited poems and sang songs. And then the residents improvised on the songs and they played music back to her. I have the video. I mean, you can see it on Maria.gr. So you have Konstantina and them interacting together in an art form in a way. And then within their improvisation, Konstantina is actually commenting all the time in Greek. She doesn't understand. They sing in French, in Greek, not in Greek, in English, in different ways, playing avant-garde improvisations. So you have the tradition and then the avant-garde music together in one space. So these residents actually become one with the space, one with the tradition. Although they don't come from that space, they become one with that. And maybe for a temporary moment. It's a very temporary moment. Being in a residency, it's a temporary moment, it's a temporary experience.
Yeah, I mean, just to take this example, because when you go somewhere, you also leave something behind. Okay, so you know when you go on a residency, you also come out of the residency, even for a temporary period of time, 3 months, 1 month, 6 months. That means you leave a society behind you, and you go to another one. You know, and I think that since the recent years, this is a phenomenon that we come in contact with ever so often. No? So this privileged mobility of the artist in residence that you mentioned, it's a privileged class, okay, comes in contact with
Gender also.
gender, class. Okay, there's a lot of discussion about what is the artist in residence, where does he or she land to, and so on. You know, I mean, some of those images look like Airbnb ads to me sometimes. You know, okay, the residency space. This is great.
They are, and they are charged as Airbnbs as well.
So there's a lot of interest in discuss, but the only thing I wanted to ask is so, you know, take into consideration the mobility of people, the mobility of citizens, okay? And we're facing now a Europe which is transforming in case of how we feel as citizens and how we need to feel as citizens in order not to have a Bolsonaro, for example, or some of us might want a Bolsonaro. So the strategy is to try to even understand where we're landing in and what we're leaving behind. And for me that was very, I mean the residency I did for 3 months at Cité des Arts, and I went there with this idea to research a philosophical idea, and ended up like going to a very specific thing, which is almost I became a militant in non-formal education out of meeting people, okay? And who cares about the work? It's the process and who do you meet with, you know, like. So I met a Syrian philosopher, professor of philosophy on the last day of my residency with like 40 degrees fever, who could not write anymore because he was afraid of his family back in Syria. You know, and then I was faced with this idea of like, where is he resident in now, in Paris, why is he there? You know, what happens to people who move places in order to explore, again, a relocation from another way. So I understand this like sort of proximity of time and space and tradition, which seems to be quite sort of common in some of the examples of the residencies, i.e. local materials, artisans, or context as industrial spaces and tourism and so on. But I didn't hear at all, and that's something that I'm going to stop it here as a comment, how people are involved with citizenship when they move in. And Evan was a good example in the sense of, you know, the boxing thing. But I think there's a necessity, because if we form an artist class of moving around without any connection to how we feel as citizens or how do we root ourselves in societies, then we become a privileged upper class traveler, you know, having coffee and so on. So that's my comment.
I'm not really, I don't know if I'm in a position to answer something like that. Because the place I have built there in Tinos is something that is completely remote from any urban kind of thing. So it's a matter of just create some, or stretching the time in a way to just put there or build some kind of relations between people that are coming there. No, we're not facing something like really very much severe, kind of intense, I don't know. But also yes, because there are a lot of dynamics come on the table, you know, at some point. So this is inevitable to happen. So I'm not sure how to answer this, but definitely, I think there things can happen, not sometimes very direct straight to the point, but also in another kind of way, like somehow trying to deal with time. Yes, that could be something.
It happens organically, actually. What you were saying, it happens organically. When the resident goes to a place, I mean, we had last year we did the thing was soundscapes, landscapes. The residents had to go out and interview the village. So we had this German dancer who was participating. And when you go out in a village that has been destroyed by the Germans, every old lady will say the worst thing is what happened at World War II. So all the stories were at World War II. This girl for 10 days actually was creating works of art in the balconies, inspired by the talks that she had with these ladies who were actually all the time in tears were saying, we don't hate you, but this is the first story that we came to our mind. And because it was German, they were telling her German stories. So that's a connection. So I think what you say happens organically, even if it's not stated right there. Like the example I'm telling you, which I didn't remember to state it before. It's there. It's there if you want it or not. I mean, some people are more sensitive with that, others just take it back with them and they express it in another way, in another residency, in their homes.
Also, also concerning the tradition and all this kind of things that you can find in places you go. Yes, there is some kind of encouragement of trying to just connect people with the place, but it's not mandatory for someone to work on tradition. You know, he can or she, then they can work in anything they want. Yes,
also we can trust artists.
Sorry,
and we can trust artists as in their curiosity.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it doesn't. I didn't plan anything to happen in my situation, but they just do it when they come, and they can be stuck in the studio and the factory, and but no, they're going outward to meet people. I didn't. Yeah, we can just encourage.
Also, like most of our in the house studio residents, that's have come again. Like it's not only one time. They've come. It's they come again to even live in Athens or permanently.
We have recurring artists. Actually, half of Medea members are from the residency now.
Wait, half of the
Medea members, the members of the Medea, which is a collective that runs the residency, have come from the pool of artists that visited the residency and revisited the residency, and now we work with them and they are members and we do work. So it's like, so we are like 20 collaborators right now, around 20, and I should say that 7 or 8 are from the residency. And all new members actually have to go to the residency and leave the residency anyway before we become members. So it's like, space is important.
Another difficulty that I have came across with is this tourism and residency, which is, I think is really very, very important to mention, especially in places like Tinos, which is like in the central Cyclades, it's like fully touristical during the summer months, especially August. This period is my worst period on the island actually, and I never go there. I never go to any of the places that is touristical in Greece that month. I come to Athens and it's amazing. The best time ever. So I'm trying to just take some distance and not place the residency also for financial reasons in the high season. The place is like completely changed after July. It's not my favorite thing. I don't like that. I become misanthropist then. I don't want to see it. Yeah, I mean.
So if I can be a bit like simple about this, we basically use the artists in order to provide to a portion of the citizens in Kavala that feel left out a connection, because this is how it started with Maria herself. So basically the outlet to the city is very important. It's not about the artist coming there and doing something for the city. It's creating that bond and that connection with ideas and perspectives that you don't have direct access like you do if you live in a metropolitan center. So you have this, not exactly disenfranchised, because we are talking about contemporary art here, so it's not about like being disenfranchised completely, but you have all these people that want to be in connection with these things, to meet these people, to speak about these ideas, And you also create a counterbalance to very strong right-wing forces. Because Kavala is a very nationalistic place. Our biggest fear right now is the elections, the next municipal elections, because the extreme right-wing is very close to get the municipality. In the Kavala you have signs in the streets that read 500 kilometers to Constantinople, in the middle of Kavala. You have the huge signs that say never forget about Cyprus. You have the hooligans of the football team that are extreme right-wing. And one of the main things, for example, when we were given the space in the archaeological museum, it was like you had this very vocal minority that would shout, why don't we do something about Alexander the Great, and we do this shit about the foreigners. Even if we are white and Northern European foreigners, the people that came in. So this counterbalance, even if it's in the level of like high-class art, it still creates the environment to have the local radio station be very invested in us. I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's do it so that we see something different from our flower market exhibition. So, what I wanted to add to what you said, that was like an intro, is the winter is very important. Kavala is barred, nobody wants to do anything there. The local amateur club is like in despair, nobody wants to go like they do in the summer. So by creating these small pockets and creating this community, because like everybody else said, everybody comes back to the residency. Everybody's a part of it, everybody is adding to the ideas. They meet locals, they know the people that work there. They know more people than I do these days. And all this will build up into saying, hey, you don't have to do things only in the summer, because this is the mentality in Greece. So our whole goal is in a couple of years perhaps to have the people coming in the winter and say, hey, I'm going to stay in this city where I don't have too many outlets, and I'm going to do something in the winter here. It's not like very partisan, but at least it's a counterbalance to the Megas Alexandros affairs in that sense.
And I would like...
I really want to say something in relation to what Prodouris mentioned, and to the relation, I mean, from Aida's side, because our case, of course, every case is different, but we've got Exarchia, I mean, we're located in Exarchia, so we've got exactly, for me that was a very big issue in the beginning, being also the only Greek, let's say, in the team, so I felt that people that were coming in, and also for my that I kind of felt this need, and that I should kind of let you know, people, that here we've got a very sensitive case. I mean, Exarchia is not a tourist place. I mean, it is also.
No, yeah, it is.
Yeah, but it is.
100% wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not a playground. There are very specific reasons why Exarchia becomes a tourist place. And of course, the most, the reason is the crisis. Anyway, so I really had this in mind, like letting people know in my own ways of what is going on here. So kind of informing them that, you know, I know you might have come for any reasons, and that's, you know, your own right, but you should know that here, it's here, it's here. But what I found out is, maybe it's my own way also, as I was trying to do that, that I was becoming kind of, you know, didactic and being like, you know, oppressive. And I was talking to artists, which I should trust, as Benoit said. So maybe I should, I don't know how to do that, but it's a very, I don't know, sensitive and subtle situation. You know, how to, you know, to say, you know, I really want to tell you about the history here, what is happening, the recent history as well, to know what is going on, and that Exarchia is not only this and that, or Athens, but I don't know, I mean, it's a very, I don't know, tricky way of doing this. But of course, it is a very, very big issue for me, and not becoming just, you know, you could become just a place to stay. And this is not the issue with the residents. As you said, it's not a place just to have coffee, it's also to, I don't know, use it. Interact, or create dialogue, create, of course, you know, I mean...
But we don't force it on anyone that comes to stay with us either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an option if you want to do that.
Yeah, but not to be, I mean, not to become at a point to be naive. I mean, of course, you don't force it, you leave them free, but then, you know, I mean, so what's the point? You just rent a room?
I just have a comment to make or a thought to share. There are different layers and different viewpoints to discuss the issue from the artist point of view, from the resident center point of view, from the localist point of view, from the international points of view. But for me, and that came up with a comment by, I don't know, by Theodoris about the citizenship and the relation or contact or links to the local community, and by the title, when an artist becomes local, for me, and I'm coming from an institutional point of view, it's really important because that's the way both artists and the locals have something to gain from this contact. And this is something that we can all share and believe in, that's why we're here. But my question to myself, and I put it on the table for thinking, is how much can an artist become a local if this is a kind of producing all the time? And what I'm trying to say is, if you are really invest as an artist, time, effort, and working hours of your life being in residence and trying to contact and become a local because you believe in that, not because you are forced to do that. How many times you can change this kind of identity of you? How many times you become, and it comes because you all say that artists come again back to the same residence, and maybe that's an indication of we cannot be chameleon-likes forever. And even ethnographers that works with locals and they try to connect with them, they cannot change cultures all the time. So coming from an institutional point of view or coming from an artist point of view, we have to think the limits of this model, of how many times we can change and how many times we can go around.
How many times you can become locals?
Yes, how many times in your life?
I think it is a really, really good question, because you can see there is a lot of artists making residencies. They are young, so they finish their scholarship, and we have a good example with Sophie Inman. She doesn't have a house. She's just jumping from one residency to another. But if you think, and particularly for women artists, when you start to have a family, it's another deal. There is not so much residency made to host the family and the baby and kids. So, yeah. I mean, once you get older, you don't do so much residency anymore, I guess. And,
yeah, but my point is more, even if you have the perfect conditions.
Yes. But I have a personal answer to give you. Like the first residency I did, I get so close with people I met, and I was so in love with the space I explored that I wanted to come back every year. But I couldn't do that. The second thing is, once I did, because it was a very strong one, and I think it's interesting to speak about this one, because now we have a kind of experience with art residency, like in a historical way. I went in Marfa everybody knows Marfa, I guess. It's in Texas. And it was founded by Donald Judd, like the father of minimalism art. And it's many questions altogether, but sorry, I am answering two questions at the same time. But how an artist can be in a local? Donald Judd came in a ghost town, and he made this city change completely. Like the town was dying in the 70s, at the end of the 60s, and because he came, he changed everything. And now I'm just questioning myself about the Marfa situation, because it's still 70% of Hispanic people, 30% of the city is border patrol, and all the rest is artists and hipsters. And the first time I came, it was for international running program by La Aide in Geneva, art school, the Revelt Academy University in Amsterdam, and the Nantes School of Art in France. And they decided to make an international residency, but this is not the only one. There is many residency in Marfa. And I lost myself in my what I wanted to say. Oh shit. Oh yeah. I was so amazed by the landscape and stuff, so I have the opportunity to come back and come back and come back, maybe 5 times. But I was thinking about the relationship between the artist and the city. And you know, in Marfa there is this famous artwork by Green and Draxel called the Prada Shop. The artwork was shot by shotgun. They put a Prada shop, like okay, this kind of a joke, but most of people are really poor and try just to survive. So this contrast between artist presence, like we were speaking about privileged people, I think this is a luxury to have the opportunity to travel.
You felt hostility from the townspeople?
I was not able to speak with Hispanic people because I don't speak the language. So it's like, you know, when both animals are like cats and dogs, like looking like that. And I really would like to interact, but it was impossible for me. So most of people I met is Texan people and and artists and curators and people, but not the people who are actually living in and working in. And what do I say about chameleon lifestyle? Je sais pas.
You raise a very important issue actually which came to my mind, and this is this link between the arts and the local community. And at a time of dwindling middle class, and at a time when the economy is getting harder and harder for the everyday person, and on the other hand we have an artist who is privileged class in a way because they're able to get all the funding and they know how to get the funding and they're able to go and travel around.
Yeah.
And to what extent can you get these two different groups reconciled together when in reality the forces driving each one are making life more difficult, especially for the average working class person who may say, I don't care a damn what's happening with the arts because I've got my own problems to deal with.
Yes.
And to what extent can I relate to you when you have the privilege of being able not having to work, of being able to travel around and get funds and so on. I'm just raising a philosophical issue here, which to what extent, and this borders to what you said also about the differences in culture, to what extent can the two be reconciled together?
Just to tell one thing about that, because there was many times coming in the conversation with the initiator at the beginning. we did something that was called blind date. So we asked a citizen to take an artist for a walk around the town. So his favorite walk, and share his stories, his memories, etc. In some cases it went great, in some other it was not, the best contact. Some of them found it very useful, some of them not. And the day of the opening, yesterday night, the artists made a walk in central and downtown Elewsina to their artworks, to the citizens, and many of the people that have participated in their walk came. So, there was an exchange. I take you for a walk, you take me for a walk. And then, organically, of course, there were other meetings that happened. For example, there's ΟΤΑΝ who is just behind there. One of the arts of initiator, she was completely autonomous and independent. Sometimes we were looking for her and we couldn't find her. We were a little bit worried as curators, organizers, etc. But what ΟΤΑΝ made happen very naturally is that she met all the fishermen at the harbor, and they helped her very much. Also people from the garage that made a machine, which is an artwork, but it looks like a machine, for her work. And the day of the opening, we had one of the fishermen bringing his boat and lighting the artwork, because it's in the public space. And we are close and we have some facilities and some help from the municipality. But it's not an on-off light that you can put light there and there and there. So these people came and helped us with their own means. And there was also a carpenter that helped ΟΤΑΝ to make her artwork with his wife. And they stayed from the beginning to the end. We were working for 2 hours. And for them, it was a win-win situation. It was an exchange for them. It was a luxury having in their own town, they didn't have to go anywhere else, an exhibition. And for them it was the first time. So, they shared a very intimate and beautiful moment. It was not about the money. There were some people that are asking where the money goes, but it was not towards the artists, it was towards the organization. So I'm not sure if it's so important after some moment how the artist gets the money, because both of them are very precarious. And for me the meeting point, especially with people that come from crafts or they're very technical, it was the material. There they found a common ground and they could understand each other in a very deep level. And then the other thing that we are trying to do as an organization is open a kiosk that is closed, because we're doing the exhibition during the winter to say that it's not only for the summer that you come, or in September for a skiing. Now it's winter and we're still here. Also it's a sign we didn't live here in the winter. We have the Συνάντηση Festival in the upper Elevsina in the summer. Now we have an exhibition with Fine Arts School. And they were like, you came back. And we were like, of course we're coming back. So we opened this kiosk for initiator that is closed during the winter. It was a sign. We open it and we welcome you. And for the people, it was very curious when we were saying that we're not selling something, we're trying to give something. And what else we're trying to do now, maybe it will go well or not, is to having guided tours all the time. So 4 times per week, the people know where to get the information. And some of the people need company when they see an artwork, some people don't. And there's 2 kinds of people that we hired. One person who is local, is a cultural enthusiast, but she's not very much into contemporary art. But for her, she feels really that it's a privilege to be close to the artist. But it's a person from Elewsina, and that's important for the citizens. It's their own child, we would say. And one person that has grew up, like me, in a small local community, but she's an archaeologist and an artist. And we work a lot with archaeological spaces. So this person can give you also reflection and some information and references on art, but also because of her background, can tell you all the archaeological process, which is important because people like this kind of details, and also make things simple. Like we had an artwork and we were talking about taking a mold and the positive and the negative and many contemporary art references. And she told me, if I see somebody like my mother, I will say that it's like you bake the cake and you take it the other way around to describe the process of having the copy of the artwork, let's say. So, these people are very important because they are finding ways to connect. We'll see.
Fantastic answer, thank you.
Thank you very much. We can all have lunch if you want.